Geno Auriemma joining us, the Continental Tire Coach's Corner with the UConn head coach, and he joins us now. How are you, Coach? Congratulations.
Listen, my friend.
Oh, no.
I was just on hold listening to you babbling about which phone coverage I should have, who's dropping their calls. Now it's the Continental Tire. God only knows what you're wearing with what logos on it. You are reminding me more and more of a NASCAR driver every time I talk to you.
I have an Olympic jacket on right now from NBC. So I'm flying the red, white, and blue, Gino. I'm glad to see you're in mid-season form in our relationship. But congrats. That was fun to watch. But how was the celebration compared to previous years? Any different?
A little bit different. I think the emotions were a little bit different. These kids, the seniors especially, the three of them, they knew they were on a quest for something special. They never shied away from it. They didn't pretend that it didn't exist. They embraced it, and God bless them. They went after it. They didn't hope that they won. They didn't stumble into the history books. They just were absolutely incredible, Dan.
Are you a big pregame speech guy?
Actually, not that much. I'm not, because I think at some point, they look at you like, really? So I kind of try to be honest with them. Like, if we're playing a team that's really bad, like, hey, guys, these guys are really bad, right? So let's not be just a little bit better than a bad team. I mean, so you can't go win one for the Gipper, like, every 2 weeks. Last night, we really did talk a little bit about, okay, this is where you wanted to be. This is the point you wanted to be at, where you're 40 minutes from making history. So that's the first time all year that I've kind of invoked that.
When's the last time your women made you cry?
Any woman? Oh, that's like every day, when I come home.
No, the girls' team, the women's team.
Oh, okay.
Well, I remember you telling me that you would go home and your wife, like, you'd look at her and going, like, you're dealing with all these girls at practice, and then you go home, like, looking for advice from her on how to deal with them.
Yeah, how about that? Like, I would come home and I would go, damn it, you're not going to, and she would go, get over it. You're not that important. It's about them. And anybody who's married and has daughters, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Don't ever ask a woman for advice on how to deal with other women.
So when's the last time your basketball team made you cry?
Geez, that's a good point. It's happened. This group certainly did. That 95 team obviously did. The 91 Final Four team did. Sue Bird's senior year did. When Diana graduated did. You just kind of get caught up in the fact that you're part of something special and it's leaving. And it's hard. It really is hard.
I know people like to rank and rate. And I want to phrase it differently than the best player you've had. I think the most important player you've ever had at UConn might be a different answer than the best player you've ever had.
Yeah, it really is. When you talk about who was there at the beginning or who got you through a certain over a certain hump that put you in another level, there's something about each championship. And that's one of the things that I talked about last night with some of our former players. These 11 championships don't necessarily, collectively go, wow, we have 11 championships. Each one is kind of framed in an era of a certain iconic player. And that's the way I've kind of chosen to look at it. So, there was the Rebecca Lobo era. There was the Diana Taurasi thing and Sue Bird thing and the Maya Moore thing and, the Stewie thing. And it really makes you appreciate the fact that that's the closest, Dan, comparison that I have with UCLA when people talk about, John Wooden. the iconic players that I remember as a kid that played for UCLA is kind of how I feel about the kids that I've coached.
Do you want to be compared to John Wooden?
No, not in a million years. I hate it.
Why?
And I'm sitting here in Indiana right now, and I hate it.
Where he was from?
Yeah. I don't like it because, half the population is going to say, well, you're not John Wooden. And I'm going to go, of course I'm not. And of course not. And then the other half that never saw any of UCLA's teams go, you could never do what he did. Well, actually we did, because when they played, it was exactly like the way women's basketball is today. So there's no winning that argument, and I coach a different sport. Although in our era today, we are kind of what UCLA was back then. Players stayed all through their college careers. You're able to build a team, and look where the game of men's basketball went. So hopefully we can do for, women's college basketball what Coach Wood and his UCLA teams did for men's basketball.
He's Geno Auriemma, the UConn women's head coach, another national championship. But do you understand, I don't know if you feel the same pressure or is it different pressure, but Coach Wooden, the pressure got to him because he had to win a national title every single year. Can you relate to that?
Yes, and I don't like it. I don't like it, and I say to myself a lot of times, do I really want to be in this situation year after year after year after year? It unless you've been in that, and you say, well, come on, how hard can it be? You have, here's the mentality. You have the best players.
Mm-hmm.
You get all the best players in the country, which is like a joke. We get 2 or 3. We don't get all of them, but this perception that, it's like probably, how is it managing the Yankees? It must be pretty cool, huh? Well, only if you win the World Series. Otherwise, it sucks. So, yeah, I feel it. I really
but
do.
Could you see yourself, like you're 62, right?
Correct.
Okay. John Wooden was 64 when he retired.
I know. In some cases, I want to be like Wooden.
but how long do you can announce your retirement now if you want to, Geno.
Only if I got a chance to take over your show a couple of days a week and made a third of your salary, then I'd be all right.
Is that what it's going to take? Because I know Notre Dame will pitch in, Tennessee, Baylor, Stanford. There's a few schools around the country that would pitch in to pay for your salary for you to join me. Absolutely. But do you see yourself coaching when you're 70?
Geez, oh man. In today's day and age, Dan, I'm not sure. I mean, I know I can keep doing this as long as I keep getting the kind of players that I'm coaching today. I don't even mean like that kind of talent, like transcendent talent, like Stewie and Mariah and Morgan Tuck. I'm talking about the kind of kids that I'm coaching. I could do it, but it's getting harder and harder, I got to tell you.
Was Dan Shaughnessy at the game last night?
He was, but somebody pointed him out to me. They spelled his name wrong, so I wasn't sure whether he was there or not. I'm not sure.
Could you take Dan Shaughnessy if you had to?
What do you mean?
You know what I mean.
Take him?
Yeah.
I don't know. He went to Holy Cross. I went to like some schmo junior college, so he's a lot smarter than me. He probably got with me.
You're from Philadelphia, though.
Yeah, I know. But he writes for the Globe, which, he's got to cover Boston College on a yearly basis, so maybe he's not that happy guy.
I'll leave you with this, and it's just my opinion, that I think college basketball needs to come up to you. I never thought you guys were bad for basketball. I never understood that logic or that angle or whatever people were saying. I grew up loving UCLA. I never thought UCLA was bad for basketball. I just thought everybody had to get better, and that's the way I view it with women's college basketball. Tennessee used to be great. You got to their level, and then you rose above them. Somebody's going to get to your level eventually and then rise above you. And, that's just the way sports work. So,
Of course it does. Of course it does, Dan. I'm glad you brought that up. When I was a kid, I idolized UCLA. I knew every kid on the team. I knew all their stats. I couldn't wait to watch them in the NCAA tournament. I was in high school. I bet on them every game with my friends. I'm not allowed to say that publicly, but and you know what? They made college basketball nationally famous. Before UCLA, college basketball on the men's side was regionally famous. So UCLA did that. And then after a while, everybody said, hey, you know what? Maybe we should aspire to do that. And I hope that that's the case with women's basketball.
Congrats, and thanks for joining us. Great talk to you again.
It's always great to talk to you, my friend.
Thank you, Geno. Geno Auriemma, head coach, women's basketball team. Yeah, I remember him telling me that story. Like he had to deal with women's issues at practice and dealing with their personalities. And, he said that time of the month, and I go home and I say to my wife starts yelling at me, like, who are you to be talking about that? Like he said, I get yelled at when I went home. I'm just trying to understand why my girls are in different moods. Oh, what a character. The Coach's Corner with Geno Auriemma, brought to you by Continental Tire.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekday mornings on Audience.